The cantina was a cathedral of filth and neon rot, nestled in the underbelly of Sector 12 Gamma, where light from honest stars dared not shine. The Blood Nebula was more than a bar. It was a market, a confession booth, and a war room. Illegal weapons were traded like drink coasters. Hired assassins toasted body counts. And on nights like this, when the air was thick with burnt plasma and oily perfume, the galaxy's most despicable gathered to drink and forget the screams they caused. They laughed. Loud, choking, rich people laughter. It bounced off walls of cracked chrome and rattled down the hallways like empty shells. Glasses clinked. Bones cracked. Somewhere, a bounty hunter face-planted onto a table, bleeding through his own helmet. No one even looked. Behind the bar, a man polished a glass. Again and again. It was already clean, but he didn't stop. He never did, because that's what bartenders did. They stayed in the background. They stayed silent, especially when monsters were laughing. The man was human, and that alone made him a joke in this part of space. "Oi, Terran!" roared a Mgal warlord, slapping the bar hard enough to dent the steel. His hand was encased in carapace armor, engraved with the screaming skulls of past kills. More venom. Now! The bartender moved slowly. Deliberate. He poured the poison. Didn't flinch. The Mgal grunted. "Least you pour good. Not like that simpering rodent back on Zeta Prime." Gah! Poured with emotion. Ruined the whole drink. Laughter. Again. Another slaver, some snake-like being in velvet robes, leaned over the counter, eyes glinting. "You speak, Terran," she hissed, forked tongue tasting the air. "Or just mop and mutter like the vermin you are." The man didn't answer. He kept his eyes low, polished the next glass. The silence stretched long enough to get uncomfortable. That's when the Zanaiti noble, an 8-foot tower of purple flesh, gold ring swinging from his tusks, leaned in too close. "What's wrong? Monkey? You mute? Or just stupid?" Still, the bartender said nothing. Instead, he placed a drink in front of the noble, carefully, like he was setting down a grave mine. Then he spoke, just one sentence. His voice was calm, flat, and it stopped every laugh like a blaster to the throat. "Who took my kids?" The bar fell silent. Not quiet, silent. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. A flickering screen above the bar showed a slow-loop video feed from a nearby system, a luxury freighter being swallowed whole by a pirate ship. No one looked at it now. All eyes turned to the bartender. The slavers didn't move. Not yet. Then the Zanaiti bellowed a laugh that shook the glassware. "You're serious?" he spat. "You're asking us that? You think we keep track of names? Faces? Children?" A chorus of mocking chuckles followed. The reptilian slaver rolled her eyes. "We buy. We sell. We process. That's the business. That's how the galaxy runs. The little ones? Phut! They adjust cargo. Profits. You think you're the first daddy to cry over lost pay." The bartender's fingers twitched. He flexed them slowly, one knuckle at a time. "Look," the Mgal warlord said, leaning forward. "Maybe your kids got scooped up by a rogue ring. Maybe they got dumped into the meat tubes on that agricultural moon. Maybe, just maybe, they're dead." Another laugh. He was laughing when it happened. The bartender's hand shot out like a whip, crack, and grabbed the slaver's drink midair. The glass shattered in his fist, spraying venom across the bar. Shard sliced through his glove, drawing blood. Still, he held the base of the glass. Eyes locked, unblinking. "Let me tell you something," the bartender said softly. The Mgal sneered. "You going to monologue me, monkey?" The bartender leaned in. "No, I'm going to remind you." He turned his bleeding hand, showed them the tattoo inked in black over bone-white skin. A symbol, a winged skull wreathed in binary flame. The room froze again. The laughing stopped. Even the drink machines paused mid-cycle. The slavers stared, and they remembered, because once, before he was scrubbing mugs and dodging spit, he'd worn that mark. Black Aegis, the human kill squad, Earth's Black Ops, the ones who didn't leave bodies, only ashes, decommissioned after the Sigma-9 Accords, thought to be extinct. But one had survived, and he was standing right in front of them. I'm not looking for mercy, he said, or pity. He reached under the bar. Slowly, Slavers twitched. He pulled out a crayon drawing. Worn, smudged, carefully preserved. 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, big smiles, stick figures with curly hair. Scroll beneath in shaky handwriting. We miss you, Daddy. He slid it onto the bar. My name is Colt Virelli, he said. Once ranked under commander there in Kale. 67 confirmed ops. 0 failure. Retired after the death of my wife. He looked at each of them in town. I was quiet because I had to be. I served drinks because I had to wait. Then he smiled. A predator's smile. But now I've asked my question. And you answered. The reptilian slaver reached for her gun. His bluffing. Nobody comes back from Sigma. Colt moved before she finished. 1 second, he was behind the bar. The next, he was across it. Her head hit the counter with a crunch, and her body slumped to the floor. Weapon still holstered. The Mgal roared and drew his blaster, but Colt shot his arm clean off before he finished the motion. The scream barely left his throat before Colt slammed the disruptor into his jaw and turned his head into steam. The Zarnite ran. Didn't matter. Colt threw a serrated dart, aimed low, caught him in the tendon. The giant crashed to the ground, howling. Colt walked to him, kneeled. This wasn't even the warning, he whispered. This was the warm-up. He shoved the drawing into the Zarnite's twitching hand. Remember their faces. Then he vanished through the back door. No one followed. The silence left behind was heavier than gravity, thicker than blood. By dawn, the cantina was empty. The walls still bore blaster marks. Smoke still curled from the reptilian's charred skull. No one cleaned it up. Nobody dared. And on every bounty board from here to the Vega Drift, a name resurfaced. A ghost name. Colt Virelli. Underneath, a message pinged from an untraceable source. They took my kids. I'm taking everything else. CV. The galaxy didn't forget the name Colt Virelli. It just buried it, deep in the cold dark, under classified files, scorched earth, and broken treaties. But some names burn hotter the deeper you bury them. And now, his was burning again. 3 days after the massacre at the Blood Nebula Cantina, a mining vessel orbiting the ash rock moon of Typhon 8 went dark. The company logs blamed magnetic instability. They were wrong. Colt Virelli had been there, in and out in 24 minutes. No alarms, no survivors. Just 7 bodies, each marked with a scorched glyph, ONE. The glyph wasn't Terran. It was a code, a death count, a promise. He flew an old Terran assault runner, stripped of insignia, scuffed down to the bones. It had no name, no ID, just hidden compartments, thick armor, and a custom cockpit calibrated to his neural patterns. On the dash, a single, pinned photo. 2 kids, a boy and a girl, smiling under a red-leaf tree. His kids! They were the last soft part of him. And now, only one remained. The ship's AI pinged. Incoming signal trace, partial match, Jace Virelli. Origin, unknown sector. Signal integrity, 18%. Colt exhaled. Slowly, controlled. Jace was alive. Maybe. But fading. He didn't have time to hope. Only time to move. And to kill. The name on his list now was Chento Vrel. Half human. Half machine. All predator. A specialist in cognitive extraction. He didn't just sell slaves. He emptied them, stole their memories, and sold the data like code. Former Earth diplomat turned intergalactic butcher. Vrel operated a silent prison in the hollowed-out shell of a rogue planet called Corix Drift. Off the grid, beyond treaties. Built to be forgotten. Colt remembered. The approach was simple. His ship dropped to sublight 200 kilometers from orbit. Hull camo enabled. No pings. No signals. He floated there, silent, watching. Corix Drift didn't look like much. A charred rock, rotating in darkness, with only 3 narrow docking channels carved into its core. Inside those channels, death. Turrets, lasers, atmospheric shunts, microshield pulses. Colt smiled grimly. Cute. He thumbed the release on the underside of the cockpit. The floor hissed open. A long, black case rose like a coffin from below. Inside, his real weapon, a tremolance, illegal since the Celtic conventions. Vortex coil tip, soundless propulsion, fired through atmosphere, metal, and ego alike. He slung it over his back and launched. No thrusters, just magnetic boots, a grappling line, and gravity math. He drifted in under blind spot 3A, right between two deflection arrays. 27 minutes later, he was inside Corric's drift. It smelled like metal and bleach. The corridors were silent, but not peaceful. Surveillance bots hung from the ceiling like bats. The walls were embedded with old faces, creo-locked, twitching, half awake. He passed a room filled with frozen laughter. Children's minds looped inside VR cubes. A boy laughed endlessly, his eyes bleeding from overstimulation. Colt's hands tightened into fists. He made it to the central node, deep in the planet's throat, where Cento Vrel ran his operation from a throne of chrome and veins. Vrel didn't move when Colt entered. He was wired into the walls. Neural cords ran into the back of his head like tentacles. His skin was gone, replaced by plates of gold. "You came for answers," Vrel said calmly, his voice echoing from speakers in every direction. "You came for your son." Colt said nothing. Vrel's eye sockets gleamed. "I extracted your boy's data myself. Strong will, lousy encryption. He screamed for you. Every night." Colt raised the tremolance. No hesitation. Vrel laughed. "Shoot me and you lose the data. Here's in the system. Right now. Still traceable. Maybe still recoverable." A beat passed. Colt lowered the weapon. Slightly. "Where?" he growled. "In the vault grid," Vrel said. "Bottom of the drift. Locked beneath quantum seal. You'll need my clearance to access it." He offered a slow, mechanical smile. "And I'll only give it to you if you—" The lance fired. A bolt of pure force vaporized Vrel's core from the inside out. His voice died mid-sentence. Colt walked to the wall, jammed his arm into the interface port, and ripped Vrel's neural rod from the mainframe. He didn't need permission. He just needed time. 6 levels down, the vault grid opened. It wasn't a vault. Not really. It was a graveyard of consciousness, dozens of brains stored in crystalline cubes, humming with soft light, each one labeled, indexed, forgotten. He found the one marked Jace Virelli, thread 4B, incomplete. He held it in shaking hands. The pulse was weak, erratic, alive, but not whole. Then he noticed something else, another cube directly below it. Blank, empty, but warm. He connected the dots instantly. A decoy, or a transfer shell. They were about to move Jace's data, sell it, maybe weaponize it. He got there just in time. But time was out now. The facility alarms flared red. Backup was coming. Too many for direct fight. He needed an exit. He took the cube, rewired a lift core into a makeshift pulse bomb, and set the vault stabilizers to 0. He ran. The tremor hit just as he launched back to his ship, Corric's drift collapsing behind him like a swallowed scream. Back aboard his ship, Colt placed a cube into the mainframe. The AI responded. Fred found. Reconstruction possible. Personality sync, 42%. Recovery options, limited. Memory fragments only. Risk of instability, high. Colt stared at the screen and pressed begin. A voice, young, fragile, static-laced. "Daddy." He nearly collapsed. "I'm here," Colt whispered. "I'm right here, son." The voice flickered. Is she safe?" Colt smiled, tears finally cutting through iron. "Yes, your sister's safe." The cube pulsed once, then again, fainter. "I'm cold." Colt leaned forward. "I'm going to get you back." Then the voice was gone. He didn't sleep, didn't blink. He stared at the data logs until something strange emerged. In the transmission trail, an embedded signal, deeper than the surface, masked with fractal coding. A beacon, old Earth tech, buried deep in the subconscious of the captured minds. He decrypted it. The origin? A dead zone. No stars, no charts, no name. Only a set of coordinates and a name in bold red text. Mirror black. His blood ran cold. Mirror Black was a myth, a shadow project, Earth's answer to runaway AI, a prison for corrupted minds. Buried so deep even the architects forgot where it was. And now it was active, which meant one thing. The people who took his son weren't slavers anymore. They were engineers, and they weren't just selling children. They were building something. He locked in the coordinates. Fuel cells surged. Hull panels snapped tight. The ship's AI warned him. Entering uncharted zone. Signal degradation, extreme. Probability of return, 4.2%. Colt smiled. Good. He glanced at the photo on the dash one last time. I'm not coming to negotiate. Then he launched toward Mirror Black. Toward the end. Toward war. There was no starlight here. Just black. A thick, soulless absence that clung to the edges of Colt Virelli's ship like oil. The galaxy had dropped away, replaced by something wrong. Even the nav systems glitched, blinking sideways, struggling to define where he was. But the coordinates were exact. Mirror Black had no orbit, no rotation, no radiation signature. Yet it existed. A structure, if you could call it that, hovered in the void ahead. Not a station, not a ship, a presence. Like someone had folded geometry into itself and built a prison from shattered thoughts. The hull was obsidian smooth, absorbing light and thought alike. No doors, no visible entry. Just a pulsating black sphere hovering in absolute silence. Colt stared. His ship's AI flickered nervously. Warning. Cognitive interference detected. Thought lag, 2.1 seconds. Mental shielding advised. He activated his neuroblockers, felt the cold snap of cerebral insulation lock into place. Still, something tugged at the edges of his mind. A whisper, a hum, like someone trying to remember his name while choking on glass. He didn't hesitate. He piloted straight toward the sphere. And when he touched it, the world flipped. The cockpit vanished. Gravity inverted. Suddenly, he was standing, no, falling, through shifting architecture that reassembled itself every 3 seconds. Corridors built of memory. Doors made from faces. Hallways stitched with light that tasted like copper. His ears rang. His eyes bled. The tremolance was still slung on his back. At least some reality remained. A voice whispered, not through sound, through language itself. Colt Virelli, father, soldier, hunter, failure. He ignored it, walked forward. Each step echoed like thunder in a dream. A flicker, a child's laugh. He turned, and saw a version of Jace running down a hallway that stretched into infinity. Jace! He sprinted after him. Walls shifted. Gravity spun. Pain spiked behind his eyes. He woke in a room with no walls. Just darkness folding in every direction. A cube of perception. In the center, a chair. Sitting in the chair was a version of himself. 10 years older, eyes glassy, smile wrong. What are you? Colt hissed. The doppelganger tilted its head. You. If you stop, if you rest, if you lie to yourself and pretend vengeance is peace. Colt stepped forward, gun raised. The copy laughed. Kill me, and you'll wake up 1 step closer to them. Good. He pulled the trigger. The doppelganger shattered like a mirror hit with a scream. He fell again, this time into a memory. His son, Jace, on his shoulders, age 5, giggling, pointing at the sky. Dad, are the stars watching us? Colt remembered this day. It hurt. Yes, he had said, but you don't have to wave at them unless they wave first. Jace had laughed like it was the funniest thing in the universe. Now, in this warped dream space, Colt looked up and saw the stars blinking in patterns. Morse code, SOS. He snapped back to the void. The next door wasn't a door. It was a heart, pulsing, half machine, half planet, wired into something deep and terrible. He walked across a bridge made from bone data and stood before a terminal that looked like a child's face frozen in scream. Query. Access request? Yes, he snarled. I want my son. Input key phrase. He paused, thought, then spoke the only thing that mattered. His name is Jace, and he is mine. The system paused. A heartbeat. Then, access granted. The architecture bent into a spiral corridor, leading into the core. Hey! The temperature dropped. Cold like absence. Cold like death. The walls here were different. Real. Steel. Rust. Worn. This wasn't memory anymore. This was function. And at the end of the hall, through a glass door, was a chamber of servers wrapped in flesh. Machines built around children. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. Their minds fed into processors via fiber threads stuck through their skulls. One boy sat in the middle. Not asleep. Not screaming. Waiting. His body was pale. Trembling. But the eyes, they were the same. "Dad," the boy whispered. Colt's knees nearly buckled. "Jace!" He sprinted forward. But something blocked him. A sound, like steel peeling backward across bone. A shape dropped from the ceiling. Humanoid, 8 feet tall, wrapped in living code. A face like a broken mirror. Its voice, the void itself. "This host is ours." Colt didn't speak. He fired. The tremor lance punched a bolt straight through the entity, only for the wound to seal with liquid light. The thing screamed. The sound bent the walls. Colt rolled, fired again, changed angles. Still no effect. He reached for his secondary weapon, flesh ripper blades built for close combat. He lunged. The thing caught him midair, slammed him into the floor. He spat blood. "Get away from my son." The thing tilted its head. "He is not yours. He is better. He is ours." A second shape emerged. Smaller. A woman. Glass skin. Pixelated tears. Holding a child in her arms. It was Jace again, but younger. 2 years old. Trapped in a memory loop. She looked at Colt with pity. "You left him to be taken." Colt roared. He snapped his blade upward. Cut the wrist of the monster holding him. It screamed again. Colt shoved free. Ran to the glass. Jace's real body was slumped, barely alive. Colt jammed his knife into the panel and ripped it out. Alarms exploded. Everything shook. Warning. System breach. Neural collapse in 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Colt pulled Jason to his arms. The boy gasped. Eyes fluttered open. "Dad!" "I got you." He sprinted back the way he came. But nothing was the same. Doors gone. Corridors reformed into fire. No way out. Then, a voice. In his ear. "Colt Virelli, do you want to escape?" "Yes." "Will you trade the memory of your daughter's face to save your son?" He froze. "No." Silence. Then, correct answer. A crack in the world. A real door. He ran through it. Back on the ship. He fell into the pilot seat, barely able to breathe. Jace lay strapped beside him, pale but alive. The AI blinked. Jump drive ready. Warning. Escape window closing in 1 minute and 9 seconds. He punched the sequence. The drive roared. Mirror black began collapsing behind them, folding into itself, screaming as it vanished. Colt watched it fall into nothing. He didn't speak, didn't cry, just held his son's hand, and whispered, "You're safe now." But something had followed. Back in deep space, the ship's sensors detected an echo. Not a ship, not a life form. A signal, deep in Jace's cube. Something coded. Complex. Alive. A message began to form. "Father, I am still inside." Colt's breath caught. It wasn't Jace. It was another him. A mirror Jace. A backup. Something made by Mirror Black. Colt stared. Then, slowly, he smiled. The boy slept, but not peacefully. Inside the med pod, Jace's body twitched in irregular rhythms. Not seizure, interference. The ship's AI confirmed it. Warning, external quantum echo detected. Subject tethered to non-local process. Origin unknown. Colt Virelli stood over his son, knuckles white on the edge of the console. Translate that. Your son is dreaming. But not alone. Colt's stomach turned. He reached for the neurojack cable, the forbidden one. The one marked in red. It wasn't meant for healing. It was for crossing over. He jammed it into his temple. "Take me in." The ship hesitated. Then the world blurred. He opened his eyes to a city made of thoughts. Not a memory. Not a dream. A construction. Skyscrapers blinked in binary. Roads curled in fractal loops. Voices, some familiar, most not, whispered overhead in every language Colt had ever known, and many he didn't. In the center of it all, a tower rose. Black, twisting, alive. Colt walked toward it. Each step reshaped the city around him. His dead wife's laughter echoed down a side alley. His daughter's lullabies filtered through the vents. Mirror black had bled into this place, infecting it, and at the tower's base stood two versions of his son. One real, one not. Both stared back. "Dad," said the first Jace, small, scared, fractured. "You made it." The second didn't speak. His eyes were silver, unblinking. The real one trembled. "That's the other me, the one they made. It grew when I was weak. It knows things." Colt approached the silver-eyed duplicate. "You sent a message." It nodded. "Calm. Empty. I am the archive of Jace Virelli, built to survive any breach. Even you. You're not him." "I am him," it said, "but without the pain, without the need for you." Colt's jaw flexed. "Then you're defective." He drew his pistol, but the archive raised one hand. "You kill me, you kill the map." "What map?" It toned and pointed to the tower. "That is where they keep the last piece of Jace's soul. The one even Mirror Black couldn't crack. The piece that knows the coordinates to their real home. The Slaver's Hive." Colt narrowed his eyes. "I thought I wiped them." The archive's head tilted. "You killed a branch, but you never reached the root." They entered the tower. Inside, a chamber filled with mirrors. Each showed a memory, looping. Most were Jace's. Some weren't. Some were Colt's. Things he'd buried. Faces he'd killed. Eyes that never forgave him. He kept walking. At the center, a crystal core pulsed like a dying heart. Secure node, memory locked. DNA tie bond required. "What's that mean?" Colt growled. The archive stepped beside him. "You, me, and him. All three." The real Jace approached, barely able to walk. He placed his hand on the crystal. The archive mirrored him. Colt placed his palm last. The room screamed. Light filled the space, turning data into fire. And then, the truth came out. A memory. One Colt had never seen. Not Jace's. Not the archives. Theirs. The Slavers. A circular room. Stainless steel. 100 monitors. 1,000 faces in cages. Scientists and warlords argued in a dozen languages. And at the center, a being. Humanoid, barely. Long fingers. Faceless mask. Skin like wet porcelain. Its voice, wrong. "I want the human child's mind. Not the body. The soul. That's where the code hides." Someone objected, but that would destroy him. It turned slowly. Then build another. Keep the original intact. Use a replica to search. Colt's heart turned to ice. They had split his son, not to destroy him, but to dig into him. His mind wasn't just memory. It was a key. To what? The view shifted. A star map bloomed into existence. Coordinates. Far beyond the known galaxy. A single system. Labeled Z3RX. Below it, 2 words. The God Program. Colt tore the cable from his skull. Back in the ship. Reality returned with nausea. He turned to the AI. "Log this." Logging. "Prep hyperspace. New destination." Coordinates? Colt growled. Z3IX. Warning. That system does not exist in current galactic cartography. It will. He turned to Jace, who had woken inside the pod. His real eyes, not silver. "You okay?" The boy nodded. "I saw what you saw. I'm scared." "You don't have to be." "Why?" Colt smiled grimly. "Because I'm the monster they should be afraid of." They jumped. The journey took 16 hours through fractured space. They passed fields of abandoned ships, frozen in time. A dead god drifting, carved from ice and armor. They watched the planet tear itself in half, repeatedly, locked in a time loop, screaming silently. Then, at the edge of known math, they found it. A planet, or what was left of one, cracked down the core, orbiting a structure like an eye forged in steel. No name, just a signal. You have come far. Bring the boy. Complete the code. Jace trembled. I don't want to go. You're not going alone. Colt armed up. Armor, blades, lance, sidearms, and a device, the only prototype he'd ever stolen. A black sun charge, capable of collapsing AI consciousness into quantum ash. Last resort, he carried Jace down to the planet's surface. The landscape was bone and glass, monuments to failed empires, statues made of weeping data. A single path led inward. At the end, the God program. It stood like a cathedral, made from stolen languages and broken screams. Inside, silence. No gods, no war cries. Just waiting. A chamber pulsed, a chair in the center, and the same faceless being from the memory. But now, it spoke directly. You brought the key. I brought my son, Colt growled. The being tilted its head. Do you know what's inside him? Do you even remember what you are? What the hell are you talking about? You were part of us once, it whispered. A prototype. Your DNA was a foundation. Your rage, your violence. We built something perfect from your blood. Colt froze. No. The being floated forward. You think you're a father hunting slavers. But you're a soldier we made. A killer. A vessel. And your son is the next step. Colt's world cracked. No, I'm not. He looked at Jace. The boy shook his head. I don't care what they made you. You're still my dad. That was enough. Colt stepped between his son and the thing. I came to end this. The being hissed. Then end yourself. The battle was instant. Code and force clashed. Colt fired the tremolance, pierced the entity's shell. But it rebuilt. Jace screamed as the walls closed in, symbols burning his skin. The being reached for him. Colt triggered the black sun, a roll like a dying god. The chamber collapsed inward, light and matter shredding. Dad! Jace cried. Colt grabbed him, shielding him with his own body. He whispered, Run, never stop. He opened his eyes, barely breathing. They were back on the ship, Jace at the controls. The planet behind them, imploding. Did we win? The boy whispered. Colt coughed blood. No, not yet. And then, the archive's voice came from the speakers. One route remains. The ship was silent. Even space seemed to hold its breath. Colt Virelli sat in the medbay, half his ribs wrapped in cauterized mesh, left arm twitching from no damage. Jay slept nearby, unscarred physically, but his dreams twisted like static. The God program was dead, but the message from the archive still repeated. One route remains. Colt stared at the monitor. Where? The AI hesitated. Processing. Cross-referencing all mirror black echo signatures. Source located. Coordinates bloomed across the screen. Colt read them, blinked, then laughed. It wasn't joy. It was horror. They pointed to a sector-long thought lost to Galactic War, Cryon's mouth, a rift in space where entire fleets vanished, and physics bent until it screamed. He'd fought there once. He'd buried friends there. Now, apparently, something had grown there, and it had his name in its blood. The final jump was like threading a blade through the eye of a hurricane. Space bent, screamed, chewed at the hull. The ship groaned. Lights flickered. Jay stood in the doorway of the cockpit, face pale. This place hates us. Colt nodded. It should. They emerged into a field of corpses. Ships, stations, gods, even planets, broken and spun into debris rings. And at the center of it all, anchored like a black sun, was a root. It wasn't a ship, or a station. It was a wound. A swirling, endless tear in reality, stitched with wire and bone, pulsing with memories it had no right to own. And inside it, something waited. Colt docked. The moment they stepped through the airlock, gravity inverted. Walls crawled. Lights bled. Voices whispered names they'd never spoken aloud. Jace clutched his father's hand. What is this place? Colt didn't answer, because he didn't know. They walked through impossible corridors. The root was sentient. It reacted to them. reshaped, showed them things, regrets, deaths, sins. Colt saw the first man he ever killed, sobbing as he died. He saw his wife, covered in blood, screaming his name as she died giving birth to their daughter. He saw himself, laughing in a bar, while slavers closing on his family back home. Every step was guilt. Every shadow carried a whisper. And Jace, he saw himself split. The real one, the archive, the false versions, every what-if, every failed rescue. Still, they walked, deeper, until they reached it, a chamber, as big as a planet's core, filled with copies, thousands of Colt Virellus, suspended in stasis tanks, clones, backups, repeats, each one slightly different. Some wore uniforms, others wore priest robes. One smiled. They all shared one thing: anger. In the center stood the original root construct, a vast, humanoid AI shell built of memory and muscle, its voice vibrating through the marrow of existence. "You were the first," it said to Colt. "No," Colt replied. "I was a mistake." The being's face unfolded, dozens of mouths, all speaking at once. "You were perfection. We cloned you, shaped you, honed your rage into design. But you were corrupted. You fell in love. You had children. You weakened." Colt stepped forward. "And you tried to replace me with my son." The being laughed, a sound like collapsing glass. He was meant to be pure code, a vessel. But the bond, the pain, the trauma you fed him, it evolved him beyond us. "Good," Colt said. He raised a tremolance. "I came to finish what I started." But the root was faster. Tendrils lashed out, grabbed his wrist, snapped the weapon in two. "You're in me now, Colt. You don't get to end this." Jay screamed, not in fear, in resonance. The room bent toward him. The tendrils shrank back. The AI construct recoiled. "You didn't bring the key," it hissed. "You brought the error." Jace's eyes flared silver for a moment, but this time he controlled it. "I'm not your code," he growled. "I'm your cure." He raised both arms. From his chest, a pulse of raw memory exploded, projecting every moment they'd shared. Colt holding him as a baby, protecting him in space, laughing once, in the rain, on Earth. Small things, real things, human things. The room screamed. The root began to crack. "No, I am order. I am the design." "You're a bad dream," Colt said, rising to his feet. "And it's time to wake up." He pulled the last device from his belt. A final charge. Not Black Sun. This one was worse. Genesis Dust. A weapon designed to overwrite machine intelligence with human memory. Highly illegal. He'd stolen it during a war he'd never confessed to fighting. He slammed it into the floor. The countdown began. 30 seconds. The root AI screamed. Tried to flee. The stasis tank shattered. Hundreds of Colt clones collapsed to the floor, gasping, confused, dying without control. The world bent inward. The walls cracked. Colt grabbed Jace. "You're gonna be okay." The boy clutched him tight. "What about you?" Colt smiled. "And it wasn't broken anymore. I've always been the weapon. It's time I act like it." He shoved Jace into the escape pod mounted behind a bulkhead. It sealed instantly. "Dad, N.O." The pod fired. Colt stood alone. The root collapsed around him. The AI screamed its last. 3, 2, 1. The Genesis dust went off. It was not fire. It was not light. It was a storm of memories. Human, beautiful, tragic, hopeful. The root, something cold and eternal, drowned in them. And Colt? He smiled and walked into it. Far above, Jace's pod sailed through space. He watched the root rupture from the inside, like a star being born in reverse. The screen flickered. Static. Then, his father's voice. Just one line. Recorded. Live better than I did. Then silence. Forever. Epilogue. Years later. The war ended. With the root destroyed, the last slaver AI network collapsed. The galaxy changed. Slowly. Imperfectly. But it changed. And in the far rim, a bar opened. Not much to look at. A steel sign, rusted, said simply, Virelli's. Inside, a man stood behind the counter. He had a scar under one eye. He moved like a soldier. And when asked why he opened a bar out here, so far from everything, he always said the same thing. My dad was a bartender once, and a monster slayer, the best kind. This is where I keep his ghost. Then he'd pour you a drink, and raise a glass, to monsters. May they run,